There's a bunch of new rules coming to the NFL in 2024. How will that impact what the Raiders do on the field? That plus a whole lot more comes up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 27th, 2024.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're giving us a look on YouTube, we appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day. It hasn't been on YouTube very long, but my man Ari does a great job each and every day getting us up there. And of course, Raider Nation, with your support, the show continues to grow. So definitely thank you in a major way. You can hit up Ari on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts, we'll get back to them in segment number 3. We didn't have them on Tuesday because of Antonio Pearson. What he had to say at the owners' meetings on Monday, wanted to make sure you got the full meal deal from AP. So we did that on Tuesday's show. We will get back to your feedback, your calls and texts, coming up in segment number 3 of today's show. Segment number 2, you want to talk about some good feedback. Former NFL wide receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh was a guest on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, Raider Nation Radio 920 on Tuesday. He was fantastic. Dropped some really good nuggets. He's a guy that's very close to Antonio Pierce. He's the guy that worked with him at Long Beach Poly on the high school level. He was a part of the coaching staff there, so he knows AP. I've had him on my radio show before Antonio was announced to be the actual full-time head coach. And he not only does he know AP, but he also knows these guys that are in the draft coming up in the end of April. And one of the guys that I wanted to have him on to talk about was JJ McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan. And the reason why is because he was on the same flight on the way to the combine with JJ, and he sat right behind him and observed him basically drawing up plays and going through film the whole way to Indy. So that's why I wanted to have him on, just to kind of get a little bit of background into JJ McCarthy, a little bit deeper dive into him. But man, the nuggets that he dropped was fantastic. So you hear that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and we'll jump into it right after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. I'll tell you a lot more about them later on in the show, but let's go ahead and jump into some of the rule changes that are going to go on and take place for the 2024 season. And these came about at the owners' meetings in Orlando. They got wrapped up on Tuesday, and the biggest rule change is the kickoff rule. Now, this is only going to go into effect for 2024. It's only going to be a one-year kind of trial and error type situation. They'll see how it goes. They'll make some tweaks to it. If they like it, they'll keep it. If not, they'll get away with it. But during the 2024 season, as far as the kickoff goes, kickers will continue to kick from the 35-yard line. But this is the twist. The other 10 players on the kickoff team will line up at the receiving team's 40-yard line. At least 9 members of the return team will line up in what they call setup zone between the 35 and the 30-yard lines. Up to 2 returners can line up in a landing zone. So there's multiple zones now. It's going to look a little different between the goal line and the 20-yard line. No one other than the kicker and returners can move until the ball either hits the ground or hits a player inside the landing zone. So imagine this. The guy that's back there returning the kick. So say it's Trey Tucker. Let's just go ahead and throw that out there because he's the speedster on the silver and black. No one besides Trey Tucker, who's receiving the ball, can move, and nobody besides, and just throw rando kicker 101 out there, can move until the ball's kicked and then the ball is actually touched by the ground or the player. So touchbacks will be marked at the 20-yard line. Remember, there was a time it was at the 20. Now it's at the 30-yard line. No fair catches will be allowed. So they're trying to bring the return game back to the game, which they actually took it away last year with the fair catch rule that they had. So they go on to say, in the event a team wants to attempt an onside kick, it will have to inform the officials of its intent and will then be allowed to use an NFL's traditional formation. So basically, no surprise onside kicks will be allowed, which is fine, whatever. I mean, the onside kick doesn't get recovered ever anymore anyway, but now there won't even be any surprises. So as Sean Payton started off the season in 2023 in Denver against the Raiders with the onside kick, now it didn't work. The Raiders were able to recover it, but That's not going to happen. No surprise onside kick. So, you can look at it like they're taking an element out of the game, or you could say, all right, well, it is what it is. If the return is back in the game, I'd rather sacrifice the onside kick for the sake of the return coming back. The proposal follows the structure and philosophy of the XFL version with a slight shift in where the players are all aligned. In the XFL, they lined up further downfield between the returning team's 30 and 35-yard lines. More than 90% of kickoffs were returned during the XFL's 2 seasons. NFL special team coaches, they participate in the design, the NFL version of this format, are hoping for a return rate of at least 80% in 2024. And what happened in 2023, there was like 2,000 kickoffs and 1,900 and something. One of those years, like 1987 or 1989 or whatever the case was, were basically fair caught or gone through the end zone. So basically a whole lot of boring. And we talked about it when they changed the rule that they were taking a big time element away. So the way that I look at this is a guy, and I use Trey Tucker because he's a speedster. He's a guy that can create in space. He's a guy that can create in a small window. So if he is allowed to move before everyone else and he makes a guy miss or 2 guys miss, all of a sudden you could be looking at a house call. You could be looking at a big play. So I'm thinking that some players that would normally not line up on special teams because they don't want to get hurt, and this is going to kind of help eliminate some of the big collisions as well, may take the chance to go ahead and line up, especially late in games when you need a big play, and you might be able to break one instead of something that you just think is going to get kicked out of bounds or it's going to be a fair caught like it is 99.9% of the time it feels like. This has a chance to be a big play for the offense. So they're trying to bring a little bit of excitement back. They're trying to bring the element of the game that they took away with the last fair catch rule. And guys have made careers off special teams, kick return, kick coverage, all that. So they're trying to make the special teams play, make this so it's not one of those where it's like, oh, it's time for the kickoff, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Oh, it's time for the kickoff, I'm going to go to the fridge. Oh, it's time for the kickoff, I'm going to go hit up DoorDash so I can get some food. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the extra point. Remember that at one point we didn't have to watch the extra point because it was automatic, and then they changed it? Well, they're trying to make this play, change it up a little bit so it's not a boring play, just a throwaway play. It's actually something to get excited about. Also, another rule, the trade deadline has been voted and traded. The deadline will now be pushed back a week until the Tuesday after the Week 9 game. So that is a minor thing, but it was something that was thought about. And you remember Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels got fired on Halloween, and the next day was the trade deadline. They're looking to move it a little bit further back. So instead of being that November 1st date, it'll be basically the second week in November. So right after the Week 9 games, that'll be the trade deadline. They're thinking that they'll push it back a little bit because less teams will still be in the mix for the playoffs, and they may decide that they want to trade some players. So something minor, trade deadline pushed back 1 week. And then, of course, on Monday, the hip drop tackle was banned. It's a 15-yard penalty. That's going to be up to the interpretation of the officials that are on the call for that game, which just gives them another element to pay attention to. So that's probably not going to end well, but it kind of is what it is. The one thing I'll say about it, and a lot of people are saying that coaches are teaching the hip drop tackle. They're not doing that. What they're doing is guys that are smaller, like a guy like me that has a big dude like a Derrick Henry coming at me, I don't have any chance of tackling him unless I jump on and hold on for dear life. That's why the hip drop tackle began to begin with, is guys that had tight ends coming at them that were much bigger, or big running backs coming at them that are much bigger, that they jumped on and just try to jump on at a certain angle and try to get them. It ended up turning into the hip drop tackle. It's not some technique that high school coaches are teaching their kids to go out and do and try to hurt people, but it's the nature of the beast, trying to get a guy to the ground by any means necessary. You don't want to give up a touchdown. You don't want to give a big play, so you're just trying to get a guy to the ground. And unfortunately, it's a game of football, and guys get injured, and they're trying to take that out of the game. So the hip drop tackle has been banned. That happened on Monday. And, of course, they want to take that element out because they want players to be safe. But have no fear, there will be multiple Christmas Day games in 2024, and that's going to be 2. And it's Wednesday. Remember last year, Christmas was on Monday. That's when the Raiders defeated the Chiefs. That was the last loss that the Chiefs suffered in 2023. Well, this upcoming year, Christmas is going to be on a Wednesday, and there's 2 games that are going to be played. So the NBA used to have Christmas Day, no longer. The NFL has taken over all the days. They have a Black Friday game. You know they have games on Saturday, of course, Sunday and Monday. They've had games on Tuesday during the 2020 COVID year. So now Wednesday for Christmas Day games, they're going to have that as well. Thursday Night Football, of course, they're streaming that. So, yeah, the NFL's got it locked, man, all week long. NFL, 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 NFL. Oh, more NFL, and more NFL. But those are some of the changes that are going to come into place. And the Christmas Day game is not really a change. It's just they decided to go back to it and have a couple games this upcoming year. So that's all I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Little news and notes really coming out of the owners' meeting, the final day in Orlando on Tuesday. Coming up in segment number 2, you'll hear my conversation with former NFL wide receiver, longtime NFL wide receiver, TJ Houshmandzadeh, who was a guest on my radio show, talking all things Antonio Pierce, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, and more. You'll hear that next here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. And the tournament is kicking, isn't it? Going to the Sweet 16, excited about that. It doesn't matter if you're betting on big upsets or a 1 seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, player props. Don't do like the NBA player, though. Betting on his own player props or having people bet the under on his player props and no one ever heard of him. You could pick who's going to win it all. You could pick just about anything. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into the conversation I had with former NFL wide receiver. Matter of fact, played a year with the Oakland Raiders then. That's wide receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh. He was on my radio show on Tuesday, and the reason is I was actually talking to a guy that covers the Michigan Wolverines on Monday, talking about their Friday Pro Day and JJ McCarthy, and he alerted me to the fact that TJ Houshmandzadeh was on the airplane with JJ McCarthy from L.A. on the way to Indianapolis for the scouting combine, which I spent a week at the scouting combine as well, and basically said that JJ was just in the playbook, drawing up plays, just really kind of a student of the game. So immediately I thought, well, I need to get him on the show to talk about that. Plus, of course, want to talk to him about Antonio Pierce. And don't forget, he played for Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati as well. Marvin Lewis is now the assistant head coach to Antonio Pierce, bringing all that experience to the sidelines with AP. So here's the conversation I had on Tuesday. Some great nuggets. I definitely wanted to bring it to the show here so you can get to hear what he had to say. But we started off with me just asking him about JJ McCarthy and that experience he had with him on the plane to the scouting combine. Check it out. Joining us now on the phone lines is our good friend TJ Houshmandzadeh, former NFL wide receiver, longtime NFL wide receiver. And TJ, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you returning to Unnecessary Roughness. Wanted to ask you about JJ McCarthy. Wanted to ask you about AP as well, but really wanted to ask you about JJ McCarthy. I heard a story that you had mentioned that you were on a plane with him, and he was drawing up a bunch of plays and going through a bunch of plays. And just tell us a little bit more about the guy and the experience that you had when it came to JJ McCarthy.
I mean, it's pretty much exactly that. We flew from LAX to the combine in Indianapolis, and that's a long flight. It's not like going from LA to Vegas.
Right. Right.
That's a long flight, and we weren't on the same row. I was slightly behind him. Now, he was in row 3. I was in row 4. And literally the entire flight, that's all he was doing.
Wow.
And I'm like, is he going to do something else? But no, the entire flight just jotting stuff down, looking over things. But I was able to spend some time with him. And if you are able to spend time with him, super impressive young man. The way he carries himself, the way he treats people, very impressed. I was impressed with him.
So is there any surprise on your end that he's being talked about right now as a top 3, top 4 quarterback?
No, it's not a surprise. But, you know, before the draft, it is what it is, what you just said. It's just all talk.
Yeah.
I mean, you just never know. For the most part, it looks as if Caleb Williams will go number 1 to the Bears. Many assume Jay Daniels will be 2. After that, you don't know. Is it Drake May? Mm-hmm. Is it JJ McCarthy? Is it Michael Penix? You just don't know. Where does Bo Nix fall into that? And it's a lot of quarterbacks that I just named, and we all know they all won't be successful. If they are, that's an anomaly. And
right.
So I hope they are. But you must get with a good organization that will have some patience, that can develop you, that has pieces around you that can help you be successful.
When it comes to J.J. McCarthy, the biggest knock is what we didn't see him do at Michigan because he didn't have to. Should that be a problem, or should that be something that we're able to pick up on that we think he can do on the next level? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, man, the coaches the teams and the organizations that are run the correct way, that do things right, that have a process of making sure that we're putting player in the best position to be successful. We want to put this player in the best position to be successful. We don't want to just throw him out there because, our fan base is excited. He's not ready to play, but let's just see what he can do. Put him in the best situation to be successful. And the majority of the time, those players are. We all look at Pat Mahomes and what he is now, but he sat a year.
Yeah.
He sat a year. And so who knows would his career be what it is now had he played right out the gate. And so, but Andy Reid, he has a track record of this is what Andy Reid does. I mean, any quarterback play with Andy Reid, you're going to have success. And so it depends on the situation, the coaches, the organization. But like I said earlier, all these kids will not be successful. It's just a matter of who it's going to be.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's one thing that we know just looking at the numbers. Everyone's not going to be successful as much as we would love them to all be successful. Again, TJ Houshmandzadeh, a longtime NFL wide receiver, is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. So from a wide receiver's point of view, what traits were you looking for in a quarterback, knowing that, okay, this guy's going to throw me the ball, he's going to help me get paid and stay in the league a long time?
I mean, that relationship is mutually beneficial to both. I make him look good. He makes me look good. But I spend a lot of time with these kids in the process, the pre-draft process, the pre-combine process, just training with them, being able to just talk to them, pick their brain, see what type of people they are, see how they process information. You want a quarterback that obviously can throw with anticipation. That, to me, is the most important thing. Can you throw with anticipation, and can you be accurate? Because if you hold on to the ball a split second, you don't trust what you see, it doesn't matter. And so for me, it's can you process and throw with anticipation, or are you accurate? If you can do that, you're going to be successful.
We saw Jimmy G last year for the Raiders set Devontae Adams up for failure so many times. What goes through a wide receiver's head when those medicine balls are thrown and you're getting blown up or potentially blown up by a defender?
Man, in today's football, man, ain't nobody getting blown up. You might get hit, but you ain't getting blown up. So, I promise you, man, I used to tell Carson Palmer, I say, Carson, I don't give a damn what it is. I'll take any hit for a reception. So don't worry about me, bro. Just throw that thing, and I'll take any hit. And so blown up, we overblowing it a little bit. They may get hit,
yeah,
but they not getting blown up now.
I respect that. I really do. And they keep changing the rules, CJ. They keep changing them each and every year to make it more and more friendly on the offense and less on the defense. You know, they've taken the hip drop tackle, which I don't even think that – I mean, you work with the youth. I don't even think that that's really taught. I think that's just a way to get a guy that's bigger than you down that's just like natural instincts.
It's instinct, bro. Like, that's not taught at all. Like, honestly, think about this. If you're chasing somebody from behind or from the side, let's go from the side. How do you tackle him?
Right.
Because if you just grab him, he's going to run through it. If you jump on his back, he's going to keep running. Instinct tells you, let me grab him around the waist and lower my body to the ground because he's not going to be able to pull my entire body weight. It's just instinct. That is never taught. But this is an offensive league.
Yeah.
And scoring was down big time this season. This past season, scoring was down. And so they want to increase that. I just hope the referees have a hard job. Man, I'm hard on the refs, but they have a hard job. I just hope that one of these calls, they don't impact a big game because it's frustrating. You work so hard as a player in the offseason. Like, if you guys could see what the players are putting themselves through right now, like I just got home from the field. I've been at the field since 9. If you could see what these players are putting themselves through and to get ready for a season, you would understand a lot of the frustration that guys have when calls don't go their way or when it's a bad call. And so I just hope that hip drop tackle doesn't affect the outcome of a game. It probably will, but, man, that's tough because that's purely instinct.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, and I said, matter of fact, when they started making a big deal about it, I was like, that's not really something that's taught. It's just instinct. It just happens, trying to get a guy down when a guy happens to be a little bit bigger or faster than you, and you're trying to make a play. Again, TJ Houshmandzadeh, former NFL wide receiver, is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. And, again, working with the youth, how much more advanced, and even these guys that are coming into the league now, how much more advanced are they, would you say, with all the advancements from, like, 7-on-7 and, you know, playing football all year there long. Are the wide receivers and quarterbacks a little bit more, ready to play? I'm not 100% ready to play, but kind of more ready to play than they were before. What are your thoughts?
They're better. For sure they're better. Because of social media, kids have access to better training at an earlier age. You got kids that are freshmen in college training with NFL guys. And so you just start to pick up things from them. Now, a lot of it, you got to make sure you get with the right trainer that's teaching you the right thing. There's a lot of social media trainers, and it looks really good. And then you get in a team setting, and your coach is looking at you like, nah, that's not going to work. But you've been taught this for so many years, so now you got to break a ton of bad habits. The quarterbacks have so many more throws, seeing cover 4, cover 6, cover 2, 3, whatever it may be, man-to-man. They get so many more throws because of 7-on-7. And, again, are they throwing with anticipation? Are they throwing accurately? If they're doing that, of course. But I would say the players are much better from a physical perspective. But mentally, have they been taught the right things? A lot of them have, and quite a few haven't.
Just got a couple more questions for you. One to ask you about AP. He is the head coach of the Silver and Black. Last time we had you on, it was still kind of a wait-and-see type mode. He is the guy. He's at the owners' meetings, and he said he's got the power of persuasion. He said he's been doing that his whole life. You worked with him at the high school level. You kind of know what he's all about. Have you seen that persuasive personality trait in AP, and where he's able to kind of not talk things into existence, but try to be very aggressive, I should say, when it comes to conversation piece and trying to get what he wants?
Yeah, but this the NFL, man. Everybody think they got that, right? Don't they? They all think. So if he gets who he wants, let's check back with me because I know who he wants.
Well, we all do. We know who he wants, and we know where it's going to take to get him. That's the number 2, and I don't know if they can get to number 2, but I feel like he really wants to get there, and he's trying to pound the table to Tom Telesco to go make it happen.
Hey, let me just say this. Okay, so we all know the guy he wants.
Right.
I know that first. I'm going to just tell you guys this. Raider Nation, just listen to me, okay? If you don't get him, and that guy that wore purple that played in the Northwest falls to y'all, you won't be disappointed. Trust me.
I like
Wait
it.
till you see this pro day tomorrow. He going to surprise some people. The dude is super athletic. They talk, he can't run. If he run the 40, he'd probably run a low 4.5. He has a cannon for an arm. He's extremely accurate. He's big. He's going to surprise some people tomorrow. So if you can't get up to number 2, this Michael Penix guy, I believe he's going to be a hell of a player. I'll say that for sure. I don't care with his injury history. So what? Give me 5 good years. I'll take that. Anything more than that, icing on the cake. Give me 5 good years. Penix is going. You got Devontae Adams.
Right.
Devontae Adams is going to create separation, and Penix is going to put the ball right there.
I love it. I really do. That's fantastic stuff right there from TJ Houshmandzadeh, former NFL wide receiver. Final question for you. You played under Marvin Lewis. He's part of the staff. He's the assistant head coach right next to AP. What does he bring to the table? How much is he going to help Antonio in this journey he's on as the head coach?
Coach Lewis is a savant. He's a savant of the game of football, man. Defensively, relating to players, how he treats guys. Marvin did a lot for my career, taught me a lot. We still communicate to this day. I'm happy for him because he should have been back in the league coaching, and for it to have taken so long, after what he did in Cincinnati, man, if people realize how much he had to do to change Cincinnati off the field, and then what he did on the field, he should have been given another opportunity. But he's going to bring a lot to the Raiders. He's going to help AP out a ton. But I'm happy for him because I know how it was in Cincinnati before he got there, and I know what he had to do to change things. He's going to do a lot for the Raiders.
So there was the conversation with former NFL wide receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh. Really good nuggets right there. I mean, from everything from AP to JJ McCarthy, love what he said about, you know, who the Raiders want to get. And I told him, we all know who they want. They want Jaden Daniels. But, you know, I love the way that he said, yeah, but if you can't get that guy, how about the guy in purple, talking about Michael Penix? And, of course, Michael Penix has been a conversation piece quite a bit here, not only on the Locked On Raiders podcast, but, of course, just amongst Raider Nation in general, because we all want to know who that quarterback's going to be. They've got Gardner Minshew. They've got Aiden O'Connell. Who's going to be the next guy they add to the mix? We all assume it's going to be a rookie. Is it going to be Jaden Daniels? Can they trade up to go get him? Doesn't look likely, but Michael Penix looks like a guy in reality that they could land. I also love what he had to say about Marvin Lewis and the way that not only did he change what the Bengals were doing on the field, but he changed what they were doing off the field. And that's a big deal because of the culture that AP is trying to instill in the Raiders organization. What he's trying to bring to the mix, he's got a guy that's been there, done that, and did it with the Cincinnati Bengals. And anyone who's been watching NFL for a long time knows how much of a mess the Bengals organization was. Marvin Lewis had them in the playoffs consistently. Now, they weren't winning in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but they were in the playoffs consistently. So there was a lot to be said to what he was able to do. And I thought that was a great nugget from TJ that I hadn't even thought about. That was something that completely just went right over my head until he actually said it out loud. Then it made me have that coming to America moment, that aha, you know, try the soup. What's wrong with the soup? Just try the soup. What's wrong with the soup? Try the soup. All right, where's your spoon? Aha, right? That moment right there, it gave me that moment. Listen to what he had to say. So hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with TJ Houshmandzadeh. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. And, well, you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater events, everything near you. They've got you. Great last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the best price guarantee. They've got that. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can actually see the view from your seat before you buy them. So you don't show up to a venue and all of a sudden get surprised, didn't know that this is what the seat looked like. No, you actually get to see what it looks like so you know what to expect when you arrive. The all-in prices show your total up front. You know what you're getting. You know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Plus, it only takes a couple seconds to buy your tickets. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create that account, use promo code LOCKEDON, it's all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Apple Valley Raider. He's calling to talk about the reaction from Antonio Pierce when he was asked about Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from Alabama. Here he is, Apple Valley Raider.
Yo, Q, this is Apple Valley Raider. Hey, I had a chance to listen to the presser with AP. You know, I'm ready to move on from the whole James Daniels and getting rid of 3 first-round picks and all that stuff. Man, did you see? Man, I know on the podcast, you probably only heard it, but did you see the smile on AP's face when he mentioned the DB from Alabama, Arnold? Man, he lit up to talk about that dude. He wants that guy. Why don't we just go get him and then just go get Penix? Looks like he might be available in the second round. Go get Penix. Penix and that dude together is better than Jaden Daniels. That's just my thought. Plus, on top of that, man, I know they try to say Penix ain't mobile. Man, go look at the tape, man. He's sneaky mobile. He just don't run a lot because his arm's so sweet. He can run. He can juke. He can get around. You know what I mean? He's probably the most underrated mobile quarterback in this draft. You know, go check it out, man. Go ask somebody outside of old boy, whatever his name is right now. You know his name. Mel Kiper Jr., Mr. C now. Man, that dude don't know what he's talking about. I don't know why we still listen to that guy. Anyway, holler at your boy, man. I'd like to hear from you on that. Give me a take.
Thank you for the call, my man. And yeah, there's a good chance that the Raiders go in that direction and get Terrion Arnold. I know for a fact that AP likes him. I know he wants an alpha dog cornerback across from Jack Jones. Penix very easily could be in the mix as well for the Raiders. I understand his mobility it's not great. It's decent to okay. He was more mobile at Indiana, but that's where he got injured, was at Indiana. Washington, he really stayed in the pocket. He had an offensive line that was stellar, and he was able to sit back in the pocket and just throw the ball around the yard. As far as my guy, Mel Kiper Jr., I got a lot of respect for Mel. I get it that all these guys aren't going to get it right all the time, but, I mean, he's been doing it for many moons. He doesn't have to be one of your favorites, but he's going to forget more than we will even ever know, including me. I put that I put myself in that category, no doubt. He knows way more and has forgotten way more than I'll ever know. The way that you can ask him about some random dude and he could say, oh, yeah, that game against Tulane, that week 5 game, so-and-so, that 3rd and 8 play. Like, the dude is a machine. So, again, you don't have to agree with everything he says. Every evaluation, everyone's not going to agree with everything anybody says. But the dude is a machine and is very good at what he does. And it's the reason why he's been doing it for as long as he had. Thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Professor Rader out of Cleveland. It says, Q, have you noticed that there's no buzz and no one is talking about Drake May? Even in AP's interview, he doesn't mention May at all. You think this is a silent play to trade with the Pats and draft him? Even Vinny Bonsignore alluded to the Raiders having something up their sleeve. Wanted to hear your thoughts as Professor Rader from Cleveland. Thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And honestly, I think that the buzz is kind of off of Drake May because, well, he didn't really create a buzz for him. I liked him a lot in 2022. Didn't like a lot about him in 2023. He really tailed off, especially towards the end of the season. Didn't really like a whole lot that he brings to the table. Now, he does have mobility. He can make the throws, but just the last thing I saw from him as far as the whole season as a collective wasn't that great as far as I'm concerned. I do believe that the Raiders are working on something. I do still believe Jaden Daniels is, QB1 in their mind. Michael Penix is probably QB2. And if you heard TJ Houshmandzadeh in segment number 2, you probably agree with the same thing. I don't know if Drake May is on their radar. I just don't think he really is. I'm not too sure whose radar he's on, but it feels like JJ McCarthy is passing Drake May at this point. Now, what does that mean? April 25th comes up and Drake May goes off the board second, right? Where we talked about him for the longest. I can easily see that happening because that's just how the draft process goes. But I'm not too sure why the buzz is off of him. I know why the buzz is off of him for me, and that's all I could really speak on. But thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider Eddie in Denver. He's calling to talk about the quarterback position and also the current offensive line situation. Here he is, Raider Eddie in Denver.
Hey, Q, what's up? This is Raider Eddie in Denver. Hey, I want to ask you about the quarterback position. I want to ask you about the O-line. In terms of having Minshew and Aiden at quarterback right now, I think we've got 2 guys that can be average starters and maybe, in the right circumstances, a little better than average. I think that's probably a fair statement. Aiden has shown he can be a winning quarterback with this team and with Antonio Pierce's style of coaching and this team playing. So do you see a situation where these guys battle it out, but also they get pretty even reps in a lot of cases, in a lot of off weeks, and that if a guy slumps, let's say Aiden wins the job and he slumps in a game or two, Minshew comes in and he sort of just picks up right where Aiden left off and he can raise the level potentially. I think the team is ready to roll with that formula if they have to. Just curious what you think. And then when it comes to the offensive line and Illuminor, Illuminor was graded by PFF and by a lot of analysts as being a slightly above average starting right tackle. And I thought we let him go for pretty reasonable money. So I'm a little surprised that we let him go. Do you think the Raiders just didn't believe in the assessment I shared on Illuminor? Do you think the Raiders have 1 or 2 guys in the mix? Because Illuminor was able to play guard as well. He was already a swing type of player. I don't know if he was a swing tackle, but he could play multiple spots. I think Munford can also play guard and tackle. But is there like a Dalton Wagner? Is there anyone else on the team that you think can give us some depth at right tackle and guard? And I am a little. The reason why I'm surprised, Q, is because we seem even more pressed to draft a right tackle high now. And, everyone talks about best player available for the draft approach. We're not going to quite be able to do that to the extent that we would have, in my opinion, if we would have held on to Luminor, again, for what I thought was reasonable money for a starting tackle. Anyway, Q, love your show, and I'm going to keep listening. Thanks.
Thank you for the call, my man. Appreciate you. It's always good to hear from you. And the thing about the quarterback position, when it comes to O'Connell and Minshew, they could be good quarterbacks. There's no doubt. They could be just above average. The question is, can any of these guys be better than above average? Can they be really good, right? Because in my opinion, that's what you're going to need, especially in the AFC. You need better than above average. You need better than good. You need really good. You need to have that guy that is a difference maker. And I know you can, in off years, win a Super Bowl with the guy that's just good, right? I mean, look, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. I get that, right? He's good. He's not great, and he's not good now. But, I mean, he was then. He was just good. He wasn't great, but he understood what the assignment was, and he knew what he had to do. There's one-off times that can happen, but that's not going to happen consistently. And you can more times than not have an opportunity to win and make a deep run in the playoffs with a really good quarterback, right? That next level guy. I mean, look, the Chiefs did it all year long with defense. We all talked about their offense was suspect, and they didn't have playmakers, and they couldn't do this, and they couldn't do that. And guess what? At the end of the day, when the Super Bowl was going on, that bloodthirsty pirate, that's name is Patrick Mahomes, came out and played big. And when he played big time, he went out there and put the team on his back and won the Super Bowl. So, again, I'm not saying that you're going to go into the draft and find Patrick Mahomes. There's a reason why he's that guy, because he's different. But you got to have a guy that you feel could compete with the likes of him, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa to a certain extent, right? Justin Herbert, right? All those aren't Joe Burrow when healthy, right? There's a lot of great arms in the AFC, and I think that the Raiders need to find a way to get theirs. As far as, Jermaine Illuminor goes, one, he went to the Giants. Carmen Brasillo was the Raiders offensive line coach. He's now in New York with the Giants, so obviously he had his eye on Jermaine. He knows what he brings to the table. Jermaine got a nice little chunk of change, man. In 2023, he made just over like $1 million or $2 million with the Raiders. He got a contract that was close to like $14 million, like a 2-year deal worth close to $14 million with the Giants. So they gave him a nice chunk of change, probably a lot more than Tom Telesco wanted to pay him, especially after Telesco told us at the scouting combine that the offensive line was good to a certain extent, but needed to be upgraded and be a lot better. Also, they're going really closer to much more closer to the zone blocking scheme. So maybe Jermaine Illuminor wasn't really the fit that they're looking for. Thayer Munford, they said he's going to compete for the right guard and right tackle position. They have Dalton Wagner still on the roster. They have DJ Fluker still on the roster. Additions need to be made, there's no doubt, but there's definitely some options out there for the Silver and Black. Raider Eddie, thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Got a text from Mr. James in Nashville. Say, what's up, Q? This is Mr. James out of Nashville. So I've been listening to all this chatter the last couple months about moving up in the draft at number 2 or number 3 and giving up like 25 draft picks and a kitchen sink to get our guy. I say that's nonsense. Poppycock even. We have the solution to our quarterback dilemma right in front of our eyes, and not a single person has brought up this guy. Now, hear me out, Raider Nation. We haven't been relevant for over 20-plus years since what? Rich Gannon. What if, just what if, we brought back Rich Gannon out of retirement and got him back out there on the field? I'm going to just stop right there. That's what happens when you don't proofread. That's what happens when you don't proofread a text message. Mr. James, that's awesome. I love the fact that he said, tell me your thoughts, Q. Remember to live, laugh, and love. Mr. James out. Yeah, there's no doubt. We're definitely laughing at that. Rich Gannon is a cool dude. Wouldn't mind seeing him on the coaching staff as a quarterback coach, but there's no way he's getting on the field, and he'll tell you there's no way. He'll stay in the broadcast booth. He's not getting on the field anytime soon, but I like it. I like you're having a little bit of fun with it. Not mad at that at all. Let's go and get this next call in from yours truly in PA. He's calling to ask a question about Michael Penix. I'm still laughing at the last text, but here's yours truly in PA talking Michael Penix.
Hey, Q. Yours truly here in PA, and I just have a random thought. It's not based off any research. It's just straight up vibes, right? So I'm thinking this Michael Penix Jr., he's giving me Russell Wilson vibes. I don't know what you think about that, but he gives me game manager, can get the job done if he has a good system and a good core around him, which we do have. What do you think about that? I mean, and then my next question is, do we get him at 13 because it sounds like he's going to fall back, or do we risk it and get him first, the second round, or trade up in the first round and grab him then? What do you think, man? Give me your thoughts. Love the show. Love what you're doing. It keeps us busy in the off season. This off season is long and dry. So, yeah, man. All right. Love what you do. Go Raider Nation. I'm out.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. And as far as Michael Penix is concerned, I don't want to call him Russell Wilson, like even good Russell Wilson, right? They're a way different style of quarterbacks. Now what I do know about Michael Penix and what excites me about him is, well, what he was able to do at Washington. He led them to an undefeated season, Pac-12 champions in the last year of the Pac-12, got them in the national championship game, and they came across those dudes named Michigan that had a defense that was incredible. So he was going to struggle no matter what. He picked apart Texas, did a fantastic job. The guy could step back in the pocket and throw the ball around the yard. Accuracy is phenomenal, right? If he has a strong run game, that's what AP wants to do, wants to run the ball, wants to have a strong rushing attack. If he has that strong rushing attack, that play action pass could be incredible, and the Raiders could stretch the field with a guy like Michael Penix. The question is, where does he go? Is he round 1? Is he pick 13? Is he later in round 1? Is he the start of round 2? Is he middle round 2? Like, nobody knows where he's going to go. And so the question is, if you're the Raiders and you like him, do you roll the dice and say, you know what, think we can get him in round 2, or think we can go back and trade up into the end of round 1 and go get him? Or do you just, cut your losses and say, we'll go get him at 13 and let a guy like a Terrion Arnold, a Byron Murphy, a top offensive tackle, or so on and so forth, go on by to someone else? Like, that's what you have to make the decision of if you're Tom Telesco. But yours truly, thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Heath from Washington, and we just got a couple more here real quick. This one says, hey, Q, you've been the best voice for the nation for years now. I know people are saying that Penix is going to fall in the second or third round, but I know in my bones that he's going to be taken in the first. This is the draft class for quarterbacks this year. We have to get our quarterback of the future this year. Saying all of that, if we can't get an offensive line to protect him, which we don't have right now, that just might get him hurt. Do we go out of our way and get the best player available and be mediocre again in the middle of the pack for the next year draft for a quarterback? I say we take a chance to build up that offensive line. I'd like to know what you think. Also, when is the Locked On Raider draft episode going to happen? Love it every year. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. That's Heath from Washington. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate the compliments on the show. And it's supposed to be dropping pretty soon. Matter of fact, I got to go ahead and give my contributions to it before it's too late. I've already made my selection, but I got to include a video on why I made that selection. So I got to make sure I do that sooner rather than later so we can go ahead and get that thing. I think they're going to start putting that together probably either later today or by the end of the week at the latest. So as soon as I find out when it'll drop, I'll definitely let you know. I think that the Raiders have to get their quarterback this year. I'd be very disappointed if I wake up on April 28th, that Sunday, just getting back from the draft in Detroit and realize that the Raiders still don't have their franchise quarterback. That'd be very disappointing in a year where there's so many quarterbacks that are available. The offensive tackle, I think that you can wait a little bit in the draft because it's deep. It's deep in offensive tackles and it's deep in cornerbacks. So you could go and get your quarterback right away. But again, like I said, the question is, where does Michael Penix go? If you can't get Jaden Daniels and Penix is your guy, do you get him at 13? Do you wait a little while? Do you wait a little bit longer? What do you do? Only time will tell, but Heath, thanks so much for that text. We'll close out with a call from Raider Nation for Life 420. It's a quick call. He's calling to ask a question about Michael Penix while he's walking through Walmart. Here he is, Raider Nation for Life 420.
Raider Nation for Life 420. Walking through Walmart right now, man. Doing a little shopping. But I got a question. I'm walking through here listening to your podcast. I got a question. Do you know anything? Do you know if Telesco and AP are interested in Penix at all? I haven't heard nothing. A lot of, okay, yeah, let's get Penix. I want Penix bad myself. It's not Jaden Daniels and Penix definitely. But I haven't heard any kind of buzz around them really being interested in Penix. And I was wondering, man, what's your thoughts on that? Raider Nation for Life 420, man. Keep doing your thing. Q, love it. Later.
Thank you for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And it's probably the first time that someone's called the podcast while walking through Walmart. So shout out to Wally's World. That's pretty cool. As far as the interest in Michael Penix, I haven't heard the Raiders come out and say that they're interested in him. We know that they're interested in Jaden Daniels since he was in the locker room following Week 18 after that Denver win. We know that. We know the relationship with AP. So that's the obvious. But if you listen to what TJ Houshmandzadeh said in segment number 2 in that interview that I did on my radio show, sounds like that there's something there, right? I mean, he didn't specifically say that the Raiders are interested, but he specifically pointed out Michael Penix and said, Raider Nation, listen to me. listen to me. I thought that was some good stuff dropped by TJ Houshmandzadeh. So that's really all I got as far as, the interest in Michael Penix. But I do believe because of the style that he would, thrive in, I think he'd be a good fit with the Raiders. And I'm sure the Raiders probably feel the same way. But I know that QB1 for them is Jaden Daniels. But that's all I got for you for today's show. Thanks so much for the call, Raider Nation for Life. I do appreciate you. Again, that's all I got for today's show. Hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with TJ Houshmandzadeh. Big thanks to him for being a part of my radio show. That was like 11, 12 great minutes with TJ. And that's, like I said, that's going to do it for today's show. So I got a lot to do on today's show. 8 to 10 a.m. going to be on the morning tailgate, filling in for Clay Baker. So it'll be me and Lindsay holding it down. Then I'll do my show, my afternoon show on Necessary Roughness from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. No ESPN, got an NBA game, so that's cool. Don't have to worry about doing that. But it's going to be a very busy day today. And Mike Tannenbaum, Mike T, the former GM of the Jets, he's actually holding a media conference call at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'll be on that as well, getting a lot of draft conversation from Mike T. So I'll bring some of that to the podcast coming up tomorrow. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.